Hi everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of April and the new moon that we have coming up in Taurus. And this happens on the 22nd of April. It happens at 7:25 p.m. Pacific and 3:25 a.m. UK time on the 23rd. And this new moon is at 3 degrees and 24 minutes of Taurus. So see where that falls in your chart. If you don't know where that falls, you can download a free birth chart from my website. You can go to this link above. That will take you to my store. You can buy a 2-part video series. And not only will that explain how to find all these points I talk about in the updates, but also what they mean for you. Now, a new moon is always the perfect time in the month to set a new intention, and set that new intention for you in the area, the house area of your chart where it falls. If it's falling in the second house, is it finding some new income? Is it falling in your 5th house? You want a new creative project, something like that. So videos will explain all of that. But beyond the personal, because Taurus is the sign most linked to the earth, Mother Earth, and all that we are experiencing right now, this is also a perfect time to set a new intention for the earth. What kind of an earth do we want? Because clearly we have been through some catastrophic changes in the last few weeks, unimaginable, that we've really been in shock, we've been in grief because a whole way of life that we'd known is almost swept away overnight. And so it's extremely understandable for all of us to feel some degree of fear of this unprecedented situation that we're in and where it's going. But because we are weaving our future into being in every moment, whatever energy and emotion we're broadcasting, we're attracting a frequency match to that as we step into our future. So if we're broadcasting fear, totally understandable, but if that's what we're doing, we are likely to attract more fearful experiences and events into our lives. So somehow we have to start to be more conscious of what we're broadcasting, how we're handling this whole extremely difficult situation. Because if we can start to project and broadcast higher level emotions, we will be pulling experiences and events out of the quantum soup, away from the wave into the particle, to make our future much better than if we were experiencing it from fear. There's always a frequency match in the inner and outer reality. So what I'd suggest to you, and this is so simple, there's an awful lot of noise out there, an awful lot of information, but this is so simple. Just go to a favourite place, if it's possible to do that physically, but for not many of us, we're able to do that right now because we're in lockdown. If you can just go to that place in your mind, sit and meditate, close your eyes, go to that favourite place. Is it by a lake? Is it in a forest? Is it at the top of a mountain? Whatever just feels totally like a sanctuary, totally peaceful for you. And just see yourself loving the earth. Just see yourself. Taurus is the sign most connected to the earth, as I say. And what Taurus energy does is heighten the senses. Our sense of touch and smell and colour, hearing, everything becomes heightened with Taurus energy. So can we just imagine that we're sitting in nature, completely connected to it and loving all that it offers us, loving the earth, loving people in our lives, loving all sentient beings, the birds, the bees, just loving all that is, because we know that we are so intimately connected to the cosmos. I wrote a great deal about this in my first book. We know we're made of stardust. I mean, that's not debated. So, and the way sun and moon move determines our circadian rhythm and the biomarkers in our blood and how they change through a 24-hour cycle. Nature, the earth, is our food source, so really get into that sense of connection. And if it's possible for you, if you have a garden or you can get to a little bit of grass or even earth where you can have bare feet on the ground, instantly you start to suck up very healing ions from the Earth, and this within minutes changes the biomarkers. It changes the quality, viscosity even, of your blood. And so I've talked about this before. It's called earthing or grounding, and you can go to groundology.com, groundology.co.uk to see all the evidence of what that connection to the Earth does. So we are meant to be connected to the Earth. And Taurus as a sign, apart from its connection to the Earth and beauty and colour and nature, also has this wonderful stillness about it, peace. It just can tune into the simple rhythms of the Earth. Taurus is about taking everything back to the simplest, back to basics. And it is the best sign, I feel, for that quality of just dropping into the ever-present now. Just dropping into stillness by imagining that you're in nature, in your favourite place. So that can do wonderful things for the healing of your system, or for your aura, but also the energy you're then emitting pulls a very different future towards us. So I'd really suggest that you explore this, because it's just so incredibly valuable for us at this time, because we've got to think beyond the crisis, because we will be out of lockdown at some point. This will end, this lockdown situation will end. And I think particularly it's easy for us to feel love at this time, partly because we may not be physically able to be with our loved ones. We're separate now from many people we care about in our lives, but also it's very interesting that the two lunations this month, the full supermoon in Libra on the 7th, 8th of the month, and this new moon in Taurus on the 22nd, 23rd, both of those signs are ruled by Venus, planet of love. So this really helps us connect to those feelings of love for all beings, living in love, broadcasting love. So at this new moon means that the sun and moon are always together, exactly together, at 324 of Taurus. They are both conjunct Uranus in Taurus at 6 degrees of Taurus. And all three of them, Sun, Moon, Uranus, are square to Saturn at 1 degree of Aquarius. So it isn't an exact square, but indeed when this square just started to come into operation between Saturn and Uranus right at the beginning of March, it was several degrees apart, but because it is a signature of economic and financial volatility and instability, massive amounts were just cut off the stock markets right across the world. In fact, the drops on stock markets were almost hadn't been seen since 1987, and that square wasn't exact. So what this new moon will do is give us, because the sun and the moon are highlighting this square yet again, will give us another glimpse of what may be coming for us more fully in 2021, because this square between Saturn in Aquarius, Uranus in Taurus will be with us pretty much all through 2021. It'll be exact in February. So it's happening now at this new moon again, and also Taurus, remember, is linked to money, the economy, wealth, currencies, that kind of thing. So we may see a bit more of that at this new moon. And it will ease away slightly. It will ease away slightly through May. The square gets wider in June. And then on the 2nd of July, Saturn retrogrades back into Capricorn and doesn't enter Aquarius again until December. So just be aware of any glimpses, any changes that are happening quite suddenly around economic matters, financial matters. Ultimately, because Uranus sits in Taurus until 2026, doesn't fully move out of Taurus until 2026, this may suggest, not now, but probably more 2021 and onwards, some significant economic or financial reset. This could lead to a universal Uranus wage. Taurus, money, could have that kind of manifestation. But as I say, we're just glimpsing a little more at this new moon. Now, Uranus in Taurus on its own, just taking that symbolism, these are very uncomfortable bedfellows. And I've got a whole video on my YouTube channel of Uranus in Taurus. So just go and have a look at that, because I cover a lot of potential manifestations there. But But Taurus, as I say, wants to keep things as they are. It wants to keep things steady. It doesn't like to rock the boat. It's very contented with what is. It can capture this feeling of stillness very, very easily, being in nature. Uranus is the opposite. It's the maverick. It wants to break things up. It never wants routine. It breaks up staleness. It never wants things to stay the same. Its very purpose is to break things up, to take us to a higher level of being. So these are, not, as I say, not easy bedfellows. So what that can mean in terms of manifestation, as well as the economic things that I've talked about, it's literally the signature of volcanoes and earthquakes, very common, particularly when Uranus is in a fixed sign, because all that eruptive energy of Uranus has to go somewhere, and it's held tight in a fixed sign, so eventually it erupts. At the full supermoon, when the moon was at its closest point to the Earth of any full moon this year, and Mars was exactly square to Uranus in Taurus, Mars was energizing all of this Uranus and Taurus energy, we had a very big earthquake, for instance, in Idaho. I think it was 6.5 earthquake in Idaho, very significant. So this, in general, is the signature of real earthquakes. There can be political earthquakes. There can be shocks and surprises in the news. And remember that we also have that really running all year conjunction between Jupiter and Pluto that was exact on the 4th of April. It'll come again, to be exact, on the 30th of June, and again on the 12th of November. And this is similar, if Uranus in Taurus is about shocks and surprises, and particularly around this new moon in Taurus, because the Sun and the Moon are conjunct it, with the background also of Jupiter conjunct Pluto, Pluto is about the powerful in society, the wealthy. And in Capricorn, this can be about even leaders of governments, that kind of thing. But there may be secrets. Pluto rules Scorpio. So there may have been secrets that have been long repressed and held down, and Jupiter will expand them and open them up to the light. Okay, so the shocks and surprises that could be possible manifestation of news that we are getting at this time. Also, to dwell on this Saturn square Uranus, which is so important for us, particularly through 2021. Saturn is the planet of limitation, constriction, contraction, and it's in Aquarius, the sign of freedom. It's squaring the ruler of Aquarius, so it's squaring the planet of freedom in its square to Uranus. So the symbolism here couldn't not be clearer. It's all around lockdown. It's all around that urge for freedom. There's a rebellious, eruptive energy coming in here, whereas Saturn is the lockdown. And please, I'm expressing no personal views on this at all, whether that's right or clearly we have to contain the virus, but this is a very, very clear, this lockdown is such a clear manifestation of this astrological pattern. And as the weeks go on, it may well be by late April that people are getting very restless. They're getting very uppity and revved up with this kind of constraint over the long term. And I read a very interesting article by a gentleman, I think, by the name of Charles Eisenstein, who is obviously a great thinker. And what he was, I don't know if he knows any astrology, but it was really speaking the symbolism that he was really talking about how far have we traded our freedom to live vibrantly, fully, wildly, with adventure and risk in our lives, to be safe and secure, to keep everything safe, secure, keep our bank account in order, our home in order. And maybe this lockdown is an extreme expression of that too. So again, no judgment here, it's just an observation of how that planetary manifestation is currently playing out. But if, for instance, you would like more freedom in your life going forward, if that is going to be an important part of your future vision for the Earth, because we're setting a new intention for the Earth right now, then can you make freedom a big part of that? I was once in a very difficult situation. It was connected to a past life experience in southwestern France, and it was very difficult to handle. And so in my meditation, every single day, I took myself to a point that I adored at the top of a almost mountain down there, with a very old ruin of a chateau. And I just imagined myself flying. I just jumped off and I was flying from the top of that mountain every day. And I was sweeping across the landscape and had no constraint, no baggage, no nothing. And eventually that whole situation was resolved, and the energy freed up, and I was able to move on. I've talked about this at length in social media posts before. So if you can find something for you where you can feel that freedom, not just think it, but feel it in your visualization, in your meditation, that will pull greater degrees of freedom into our future reality. Because if we can start to work collectively on things that we want, do we want the earth, as with that Taurus energy, to be vibrant, abundant, rich, beautiful, heightened colours, magnificent? Then let's start living it right now to get that frequency match as well. Now, at the time of the new moon, we have Mercury at 20 of Aries, conjunct Eris at 23 of Aries, and they are both squaring Pluto in Capricorn. As I've spoken many times, Pluto in Capricorn is government, controls, power over the people, very apparent at the moment. And Mercury coming together with Eris in Aries is about vocalizing any need in Aries, freedom and independence, also very linked to the sign of Aries. But with Eris, Eris is in myth where you felt slighted or disregarded or not properly recognised by the system in which you're living. And therefore, and this has been very apparent energy in the Hong Kong protests that lasted for months. People taking to the streets and erupting for more freedom, more independence, to be heard against the top-down control of the government. And this is, Aries particularly, is a kind of what about me? In Aries, it's what about me? Where do I fit? Where do my needs and freedoms sit in this society? And with Mercury coming conjunct with that, that will tend to verbalise it as well. Then on the 25th of April, we have Mercury in an exact square to Pluto at 25 of Aries, 25 of Capricorn. And on that day as well, on the 25th, Pluto becomes stationary retrograde. Now, whenever planets become stationary, I've said this before, whichever direction they're moving in, their symbolism is magnified. So on that day, or around that day, a few days to either side, we are likely to see more power exerted, more control, or lording it over others. Strong words, Mercury, being spoken by our leaders. And again, if they're seeing any restlessness in the population, perhaps against the lockdown, they will have to impose, they would think, greater restrictions upon us. Again, I'm not judging any situation, I'm just explaining how the symbolism may play out. So I want to go back to Uranus in Taurus now, because I said a few minutes ago that they are very odd bedfellows. And if you take the meanings in the way I described them, yes, they are. There's a lot of tension between them. But if we look at this symbolism in a different way, again sticking absolutely to the astrology, then it becomes a very different story, because as well as Taurus representing the earth, it represents our physical body. Uranus is the planet of awakening. It represents very high frequency. It's the high octave of Mercury, very high vibration, high frequency energy. Now, we know, I've mentioned it several times, that our entire solar system is spinning out of this very protective area in space called the magnetic cloud, where it has existed for all of our lifetimes. And that means that more cosmic and galactic energy is coming into our earth plane and also into our bodies. This isn't woo-woo, this is science. It's happening for us. And that means that we are all experiencing a very exciting, energetic and physical upgrade with this new energy that's coming in. There's a lot more light coming into our earth plane, and light carries information. So again, Can you, when you're sitting quietly, meditating, can you imagine that column of white sparkly diamond light coming down into your crown chakra? Just bringing in lots of new information for you to help that upgrade. Can you have that sense of expansion in this amazing new energy, new light, rather than the contraction in our 3D circumstances? And so this, because we're shifting towards this sense of, rather than looking inwards to our very contained 3D lockdown, which is so limited, of turning our vision to that vast blackness of the cosmos and starting up to see ourselves more and more as galactic citizens and as star humans, as I mentioned in the last video, because we are made of stardust. And what is fascinating as well, if you really want to understand more about the science of this, because I don't have time to go into it all, one of the great experts on this is a man called Rory Duff, roryduff.com. I'll put the link below. And he is an Earth mystery researcher. He's a master dowser, and what he has found is that all of the energy lines on the Earth are strengthening and widening. Now, this may well be as a result of the drop in the magnetic shield. He's such a pioneer in this really groundbreaking work, but because he has found that some of the energy lines are created by the cycles of the moon, others have a source that is galactic. And that is really fascinating about our interconnectedness. But I should say no more. I should leave you to explore all of his videos and writings, because that will take you on a remarkable journey. But just to emphasize that this is happening to all of us, and we can kind of be in our discombobulated fear and shock and grief, and totally understandable, or we can start to consciously get a bit of a grip and start to look beyond that towards what do we want to create in this earth for the future, because we are all co-creating in every single second, whether we realize it or not. So the more conscious we can be, the more collective momentum we can create. And then on the 30th of the month, 30th of April, Mercury almost replaces the Sun and the Moon to come exactly conjunct or tightly conjunct to Uranus, square to Saturn. So again, it's bringing up that Saturn-Uranus square. And so again, this is another time for more shocking or surprising news coming out around that time. But any hard aspect, conjunction, square, opposition between Mercury and Uranus is very connected to downloads, brilliant, genius information coming into you, the mind of God connecting to your superconscious. It's where the mind starts to move so quickly you can't explain where the information is coming from. So this again is very linked to Kundalini energy. It's very linked to your third eye. So another thing we can do very simply when we're doing our breath work, our meditating, our sitting quietly, closing our eyes, is start to focus on this third eye. Because if you can start to do that, if you haven't got this already, you might start to see colours or even fireworks, bright lights at times. And the more you can sustain that and kind of go into those colours and lights, the more that will start to become clearer for you. And this to me is our portal. This is our, dare I say, our interdimensional portal to start to create a different vision of who we as immensely powerful earth beings, but also galactic beings, really can become. So I hope that's been helpful for you. I hope it's helped to give you a kind of bigger vision of where we may all collectively be able to take these huge transformational and transitional energies and times that we're going through right now. And if you'd like more information about my book, my teaching videos, my very long monthly newsletter, you can just check out my website, pamgregory.com. And in the meantime, have a wonderful new moon in Taurus. Don't forget to set an intention for the earth too. Bye for now.